I do kind of find the situation funny because currently on Illumicrate's FAQ, they do say if you haven't received a book in 10 months, they will cancel your subscription. So, or they reserve the right to cancel your subscription. So it's like they already kind of had a limit. So I don't think it's that surprising that they would like put a more specific limit into words. My name is Taylor Rose and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything reading and writing. So recently there have been a lot of conversations around book boxes, but today we are talking about probably one of the most popular book boxes, at least one of the three that I hear about constantly. Illumicrate has changed its skip policy, which has raised a lot of concerns with subscribers. If you are unfamiliar with book box subscriptions, here is Book of the Month, which is also a really popular book subscription service. One thing that seems to be special about Book of the Month is that you get to choose. If you go on their website, you can see all of the book options for a particular month. So you are allowed to pick which book you receive. Another very popular subscription service is Fairy Loot. So they are known for doing more fantasy-based special edition books versus Book of the Month, which gives you the standard version of a book. You can see that Fairy Loot has multiple options. There is a YA book and items, YA book only, adult book only, romantasy book only, and then epic book only subscriptions. One thing you can also do is go to their shop. They sell the special edition books for anybody to purchase. The pre-orders start for subscribers only, and then if there are leftover copies, everyone else can buy them. And this is because you don't get to choose the book in the subscription. They choose every month for each box what everyone is going to receive. But we are going to focus on Illumicrate today. They also do special edition books, and there are multiple options for your subscriptions. There's the Illumicrate book only. It is a recently released exclusive special edition. Illumicrate box, which includes book merch as well, the Afterlight romance, and the Evernight horror. So you kind of get general fantasy, romance, horror. You can combine the Afterlight and the Illumicrate subscription. And if you notice that several of these say join the waitlist. So they have a set number of subscribers that they allow. And if they're all full up, you have to wait. Like Fairy Loot, they also have a shop, so you can buy the special edition books if you so desire. For example, you can see this copy of Voidwalkers, just the book, but this copy of Voidwalker also includes the book merch from the Illumicrate box. One thing that they do is every month they will post their updates on each box. So if you go up here and filter, you can do Illumicrate reveal. Right? So every month it's going to give you the theme and details about what is included. So for example, if we go look in the October 2025, you can see our Illumicrate October theme is in every life. Nothing can keep us apart. We will be together in every life. If you like star-crossed lovers and sapphic yearning, we think you'll enjoy this one. You can see the book at a glance section, tells you the genre. So this time it's going to be an adult fantasy standalone. It kind of tells you like what's going to be in the book. So for example, this time it's going to be a lesbian romance is the main romance, and then a gay romance as the secondary. There are POC main characters, a transmasc secondary character, queer and BIPOC side characters. They also include content warnings, so you are well aware of what the book is including: graphic violence, death, imprisonment, etc. in this particular book. They also have articles for their romance line and their horror line. They also announce when they are going to be selling exclusive versions of books that aren't going to be a box. So far, everything sounds great. However, their latest news is about their skip policy update. So previously, you could skip every single month if you wanted. When you get your little preview, if you don't like it, you can skip it before the first of the month. and you will not pay for that box. However, they have announced that starting in 2026, they have a new skip policy that allows you to skip only 6 times within a calendar year if you are a monthly subscriber. So people are now very up in arms about this. Camilla Reeds posted in reference to the new Illumicrate skip rules. It's still 6 skips per calendar year. If you want to skip more than half the books in a subscription box per year, why are you even subscribed? Make it make sense. And Claudia K. Bookish points out, mainly, I think because the books that are wanted are usually just a pre-sale thing where you need to have an active sub to get them, and Illumicrate do really nice ones for those while kind of neglecting their sub, which has been improved by them finally redesigning the covers. Ari Bookish responds, but Illumicrate books make it to general sale 95% of the time anyways. So I think that Claudia does have a point. We've all seen those posts where people are reselling these special editions for $100, $150, $200 after they receive them. So I can understand why people would be frustrated, you know, needing a subscription, but not actually wanting any of those other books, but specifically wanting a exclusive edition that's come out and not being able to receive that because all these other people can claim it first would be really heartbreaking. But if what Ari says is true and that they basically never run out anyways, I don't know, your mileage may vary. Claudia concedes, so true. I guess maybe people aren't willing to risk it. IDK, but I'm canceling for entirely different reasons, and this was kind of like a nail in the coffin. Enchanted Tales with Lore says, when they first posted the new policy, I was so nervous we'd be capped at like 2 or 3 skips. I was so relieved when I saw we get 6. I really only ever skip when money is tight or if they say it's a B format sized book. I like all my Afterlight books being the same size. So like 6 skips is way more than I need. So to Camilla Reed's post, Steph Reads a Lot responded, people just want the access to pre-sales of books they like more than they want the monthly box. The special editions usually don't make it to public sale for popular titles, so the cost of the monthly box with a lot of skips was worth it for the books they actually want. Having to for sure buy 6 books that they don't want, that you also can't even sell for what you paid for them to recoup some of that, is making some people rethink their subscriptions. And Camilla responded, most of the Illumicrate books tend to make it to general sale when compared to other book boxes. Plus, their resale price is pretty much what you pay for it, so honestly, I don't understand this reasoning. Steph responds, I canceled Illumicrate at the beginning of the year. When I did have it, highly anticipated special editions sold out before it made it to public sale. It might not have been as bad as other companies, but it still happened. In the 2 years I had Illumicrate, the only box I could resell for the $40 I paid is Babel. All of the other resell for less if they sell at all. While I don't care about getting special editions myself, I definitely understand others' reasoning behind disliking the change. This I totally understand. I kind of wonder if, I don't really think there's a way to make everybody happy. Author Michelle Khalil posted, people big mad in Illumicrate's comment sections because they're not doing popular books is the reason why I'm fully convinced a lot of these people only actually read like the same 10 books over and over again. Maybe if people expanded their literary horizons beyond Bat Boys and that one dragon book, they'd have less to complain about. This was pretty funny. I do kind of agree with it. It does seem like people specifically only want books that are already really popular. And I can understand why when you look at this from the angle, this is a special edition version versus Book of the Month, which is just the standard book. That feels to me more like a service for people to explore books and discover new things versus paying more for a fancy copy of something. Do you really want the fancy copy if you don't like the book? Most people would probably say no. Ari Bookish responded, it's a service I pay, I'm allowed to want more. Actually, no, because you don't pay anything because you skip all the books. Please do unsubscribe. They aren't losing money when you leave because you haven't given them any. Dang, okay. Key Stephs posted, when Illumicrate amends its skip policy to only be half the entire year, and all the hateful people use that as an excuse to be racist and homophobic in their comments, get me out of this hellscape. This bookish lady says, truly, like I think they literally want to peer pressure them into only putting white hetero romantasy in their monthly box. Loremakers Fantasy Events responds, those were such weird reactions. It seemed like many of them only really want yet another version of already popular books. I have Illumicrate and I love the different representation in it, and that most of them are books I've never heard of. Ari Bookish says, the Illumicrate comment section is a great example of what is wrong. I use this term dramatically with the book community. If you don't like the books they pick, unsubscribe. You don't have to stay subscribed. If you want popular books, then go to a sub box that does that. But also, what makes a book more popular than another, especially a book that isn't out yet? Is it maybe that IC picks are very often from POC or queer authors? The Geek in the Jeep says, the comment about wanting less books in the queer genre had me spiraling. Queer genre? What the actual F? Yeah, that's yikes. Reading Oceanside responds, the comments under queer picks makes me so angry. It's basically straight white people trying to guilt Illumicrate into picking more straight white books or they'll cancel. Eerie Bookish says, someone said they should mix it up more when they have a super diverse lineup of books. Bookish Stalker says, I skip most of their boxes. I used to love buying books blind, but now I prefer seeing the cover/art before buying them. Part of it has to do with the price and poor Canadian exchange rate. I only buy when the summary draws me in, as in, will want to start to read as soon as I receive it, and I like the artist's style. If I'm unsure on either front, I don't get the book. I'm sure I'm not their target audience and will probably unsubscribe early next year once I've used all my skips. I mean, I can see this. I'm definitely kind of like a vibe picker. Like, I have a list of books that have interested me at one point, but I'm definitely pulled in by the cover. This sounds bad. You're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I'm definitely pulled in by the cover and then the blurb secondarily to that. So Sylvia MG Author kind of goes into some of the motivations behind why publishers would even choose to have certain books of theirs in a subscription service to begin with. Special editions and book boxes. How do these happen? Authors and publishers license books for these special editions. The book box company consults with the author on the decorative elements, cover, edges, etc. Either offers an advance and a royalty or just a royalty. The money can be quite modest as the rates are normally slimmer than for a regular edition, and the quantities can be fairly limited. Sometimes there might be a signing fee if the author has to sign a large number of books. But last books I signed, there was no fee and I had to sign 3,000 pages. In terms of printing, these special editions are printed by the book box company, so they choose materials and printer. It's fairly normal to have them printed in China and final copies shipped back to the book box. And no, I don't know how that is affected by tariffs at all. I've talked about it before, but the pervasive idea is book boxes don't make money for a publisher, but they might serve as a promotional vehicle or they might help reach a different audience. This is the same reasoning for why traditional publishers will agree to license books to Kindle Unlimited. As my editor put it when they put a title of mine on Kindle Unlimited, it's a different audience that normally doesn't buy books. They read solely from the Kindle Unlimited catalog. But the idea is maybe if they like Title A, they'll try something else by a writer. So do book boxes actually fulfill the promise of being a sort of free advertising vehicle and then perhaps generating sales? The answer, like almost everything, is kind of yes and kind of no. I've been in Illumicrate and Book of the Month, and looking at sales and also talking to other authors, some titles do generate exposure. They're featured in videos, unboxings, etc. But others disappear without a whisper. They also don't really seem to influence sales directly. A title included in, say, Big Box A does not do better than a title that was not included. What happens seems to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Books that are already considered hot may go up a degree or two, but a huge hit already has momentum and won't really need any book boxes. However, the book ecosystem has become more fragmented and difficult. What used to be reliable promotional channels, such as book reviews in newspapers and magazines, which might reach thousands of would-be readers, continue to disappear. Formats that used to sell, such as the supermarket paperback rack, don't reach people like they did, etc. What to do then for a publisher who can't spend an arm and a leg marketing a book? Well, book boxes at least generate some level of attention. That's the prevailing thought process. And though these editions might not bring in a lot of money or count towards some lists like the New York Times bestseller list, they're at least a form of free publicity. Now, there are dominating aesthetics in book boxes, and right now anything romantasy is hot, while you will probably find that a short fiction collection is simply not going to get selected for a book box. And because of that, aesthetic books, sometimes the books look the same in terms of design. You'd be hard-pressed to figure out which title is which. But the book box is fulfilling an implicit promise of a constant experience. So are book boxes useful for writers? Depends. Do they actually move the needle for a book? Sometimes, often no. However, this tends to be the case for most marketing vehicles for books. Books are incredibly hard to sell. In a world in which dozens of books in a genre pop up every week, some possibility of attention is better than none. Or at least that's what most publishers will tell you. Now carry on, sprayed edges or not. P.S. Illumicrate, Illumicrate, and other book boxes operate on the principle that a book is not returnable. Books are normally returnable to a publisher. I won't go into detail with this right now, but basically this is another reason why a publisher might look kindly at a licensed edition for these companies. I may talk about returnability, reserves, and writer statements at some point in the future. So that is another thing to consider. If the publisher isn't actually going to see much profit from this kind of collaboration, it makes sense that smaller books that are looking for exposure would be more likely to be included in this kind of box. However, unfortunately, Illumicrate's announcement has gotten a lot of pretty nasty comments. Biblio Baggins posted, "Oh, so we're just being openly racist in the Illumicrate comments now." And she attached a screenshot from Illumicrate's post where this user says, "Well, I certainly skipped a lot of the monthly books in the last 12 months, and I didn't regret a single skip. The book choices and designs were very disappointing. I personally am not interested in books with an Asian setting. I don't need 20 books with Asian culture." And I will say, I can understand where they're coming from if they happen to already read a lot of books with Asian culture, but honestly, that's not how this comic comes off. And it just kind of strikes me as funny because so many fantasy books you pick up are clearly just reskinned European cultures. I personally like seeing books that have different inspirations than, oh, yet again, here's another Germany coded fantasy world, or here's France again, here's England. I do think they definitely take over quite a bit of the fantasy genre, especially with the rise of Fae romantasy. You are seeing so many bad ripoffs of Irish culture. It's a little disheartening. I remember seeing a post where someone said, "I'm so tired of seeing all these made-up names like Imogene." Excuse me? This next user commented, "I think you've just created a huge rift and divide between your customers because as understandable as your policy change in the business aspect of it, these comments are turning into a hate war and misguided accusations instead of understanding of each person's desire to get their preferred reading material. Then I don't understand why you're subscribed to a book service where you don't get to pick the book. Like you're paying them to choose for you, essentially." Emily posted another screenshot showing a different problematic comment. This user said, "Stop with so many sapphic novels then, and pick actually interesting books." While I will say, yeah, you do need to consider the general appeal of a novel if you're going to be including it in a service such as this, I do find it funny that people think that their opinion on what is a generally attractive book is the standard for a good book is kind of a reach. Behind paperbacks includes some more of the questionable comments in the Illumicrate comment section. "I'm finding the consistent selection of LGBTQ+ themed books to be a bit repetitive. I'd love to see a wider variety of genres in future boxes." So I guess this is the gay genre comment. Why do you care so much? I think the people who are saying things like that are the types of readers who want to self-insert themselves and prefer first person. You hear this argument a lot. Like, I only read first person because then I can pretend I'm the character, which that's fine. I don't want to pretend I'm the character, so that's not something that really affects me. I prefer third person. Like, I want to see what the characters are doing. I don't need to feel like I'm the one doing all these things. Another comment says, "In my humble opinion, Illumicrate should just pick better books. I feel like they just go with one, let's tick diversity books and that's it. Amazing LGBT boxes which were picked up by other book boxes were Black Sun Trilogy, Mask of Mirrors. On the flip side, not all romantasy are bad either, and I don't understand why people have such an elitist take on this. Irresistible Urge was a genuinely good book. The only picks I liked this year, which would be a genuinely good book, was Raven Scholar. They should either pick a good book or a popular book, not a mid book, which only just ticks a box." And again, I feel like this is really subject to personal taste. There are a lot of really popular books that I've tried reading and absolutely hated. I didn't even know Quicksilver was like a book talk book because it just popped up on Amazon under Kindle Unlimited. So I tried reading it and I got 2.5 chapters in and DNF'd because I found both main characters to be absolutely infuriating. But so many people are raving about it on the internet. I did want to go ahead and add that there are several comments in opposition to the problematic ones that are supporting Illumicrate's choices. For example, this one by Tara Hiffick. "Hi Illumicrate, want to say how much I appreciate your continued inclusion of LGBTQ+ representation across all genres and subgenres. It's refreshing to have a sub-box where it is normalized instead of just 1 or 2 picks among many strictly straight picks. Please don't stop showcasing character diversity. Additionally, I love that you make an effort to platform authors of color, queer authors, new debut, lesser-known authors, and both standalone books and books in a series. I also see a lot of people complaining about too many romantasy picks, but I think there's a misunderstanding here, since a book simply including romance does not make it a romantasy. I love the variety y'all give us of epic fantasy, retellings, contemporary/magical realism, romantic subplots within fantasy, and occasionally a true romantasy. While I don't love having more limited skips and would rather have to decide to skip earlier so you have a better count, if your variety of books stays consistent, I will absolutely stay subscribed. Jen E. Reads says, any bigots in the comments should get an automatic ban. Clearly, they don't actually read these books. 6 skips a year is still generous. If you're skipping more than half, why do you need a subscription? Librarian Lyriel says, IDK why everyone wants to skip so many books. I love that you guys pick some kind of off-the-radar stuff, and I really appreciate how diverse your picks are. I really appreciated being exposed to books I might otherwise not know about. And Nimsabao Reads says, that's a generous skip policy. Thank you, Illumicrate. I love your picks and designs, especially the printed hardbacks. Since people are sharing what makes them skip, which I figure you may find useful, the most common reason I skip is due to financial strain. Aside from the hardcover design, full art, over foil, the items are often the deciding factor too, what they are or the fandoms included. Gosh, how I love the goodies you include. And then we have Katie Powell, 561, who said, a lot of the books this year have sounded good in theory, but the writing has fallen flat. For instance, was very excited for Water Moon, and the writing disappointed me so much I couldn't finish it. However, The Raven Scholar I absolutely adored, and the writing was phenomenal. I also loved A Dark and Drowning Tide, both from authors with several books under their belts and known for good writing. I'd like to see more authors with a reputation like V.E. Schwab and Rachel Gillig back in the monthly box. It's hard to justify buying a book from a debut author I've never heard of. I give the debut novels you included this year a try, and unfortunately, they did not wow. I don't care for a pretty book if the contents are lackluster. I hope Illumicrate takes this into consideration with the picks for 2026. Again, I think this is just a matter of opinion. I just read A Dark and Drowning Tide, which, while beautifully written, I felt like most of the conversations were cut off, so you didn't really understand what they were trying to say. And scenes were really vague. Something would be mentioned once and then talked around every scene after that. For example, one character is stabbed in the shoulder and it's not treated until maybe 20 pages later. And then they never describe the wound. They just say that they took off their shirt and the other person bandages their wound. So it's like after 20 pages, I kind of forgot that she'd gotten stabbed in the shoulder. That sort of thing happened constantly, to the point where I was having to flip back to reread previous scenes to make sure that I was remembering things correctly, because they were never actually referenced twice. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion about a book, so I'm not trying to say that she's wrong for having really liked the book, but it just goes to show how differently people can interpret the same source material. And it does just kind of tie into Sylvia's post that we went over earlier, talking about why publishers decide whether or not to have their book in something like a subscription box that honestly might just preclude some of these more popular books. Who knows? I don't know if it would even be possible, perhaps, to have some sort of censored sample of the writing with maybe names redacted or something. That might be a way for people to have a better feel on whether or not they'd like a book before they commit to not skipping. But again, I feel like the whole point of these subscription boxes is to surprise you, given that Fairy Loot and Illumicrate both only give hints until the box is finally released. This comment reads, I'm sorry, but if people skip most of your books, it's on you and no one else. I personally don't even really care about the titles because I only get them for the aesthetic, but let me tell you that even aesthetically speaking, many of the latest ones aren't exactly worth staying with a more restrictive skip policy. So I'll keep an eye out on the next few ones. I'll look and see if there's a stricter policy on the design quality as well, and take my conclusions on what to do with the subscription from that. So a lot of people have actually spoken up about this. Bailey on TikTok made some good points about the art styles found in book box subscriptions.
I would like book subscription boxes to get a new art style. This is something I've thought for a long time, but I recently got my Illumicrate special edition of The Second Death of Locke. I'm gonna put the actual, normal standard cover for this book up here. Observe the vibes. I haven't read this book, so I don't really know exactly what the vibes are, but definitely Lady Knight, medieval fantasy, older kind of classic fantasy vibe with this cover right here. And I want to show you what the Illumicrate copy looks like. Not that. What's crazy is that the edges have this really cohesive design with the original cover as well. And then under the dust jacket, like, this is beautiful. This is kind of what I thought this book was going to look like. But take a second and look at the fan art on the inside flap, which is not, feels to me a lot goofier and a lot more casual. A lot of book boxes have this particular kind of style. Previous Illumicrate book, there's some more of that art there. Owlcrate Fable for the End of the World. I'm not showing this very well, but there you go. Let me be clear, the art itself is not bad. This is not me saying that like these artists are doing a bad job, but I'm a little bit tired of so many of these books having such a similar art direction despite being very different from one another. I was complaining to my partner about this, like, why would an epic medieval fantasy lady knight story have the same kind of character art as a YA dystopia? I mean, I actually do have a guess for why this is the case, and even though these art styles aren't exactly like similar to one another, like they're not one-to-one similarities, they're not all the exact same artists, they all bear a resemblance to like really early ACOTAR fan art. That kind of fan art and that style like blew up. It was extremely popular. It walked the line between like realistic and a little bit cartoony enough to not feel like you were just looking at a painting of a guy. And this kind of art style became so associated with bookish spaces that it became the default for subscription boxes, especially if they've been working with the same artist for a really long time and they know it's a safe bet. I do think this was a popular art style when it came to like Six of Crows and early Raven Cycle fan art as well. In fact, it's kind of the only thing that I don't love about my edition of the Raven Cycle from Fairy Loot. Early bookish fandom, that's what I'm getting across. And we've just never really pushed past that. And I know book boxes can change it up. Check out this edition of The Library at Halibor. This is from the Owlcrate horror box. I love this. This is so different. It is a completely different vibe from these other books, which makes sense because it is a completely different type of book. Or even this edition of A Dark and Drowning Tide from Illumicrate feels very specific to the book and its atmosphere and aesthetics. I understand why people might disagree with me on this because obviously it's working to some extent because people keep buying these books and these artists and like this kind of art style continues to be commissioned. At the end of the day, I prefer an art direction that integrates the themes, aesthetics, and feeling of the book as opposed to feeling like corporatized fan art.
Agreed with everything she said. That is something I've noticed a lot in special editions and why I've never really been interested in them is that the cover and then the insides of the book will feel like two different books entirely almost. Like she showed, several of those had really nice covers, and then when you look at the character art on the inside, it's not at all the same vibe. It's not even a similar style. For example, I recently got an ARC for a like bonus content novella. And while I liked it, it was fun seeing all this extra information, especially like about the world, but none of the illustrations inside felt like they belonged with the series. Like what was on the cover of each book was like a great style that really fit the vibes. But then the character illustrations in this novella, they just felt like completely different characters, honestly. And I think that might be one of the problems with Illumicrate that people are having. It's like clearly most people want to see more diverse representation in their books. It makes it more interesting. It keeps things from feeling like cookie cutter. If every single book is going to be a copy of X country's mythology, at a certain point, it's like you feel like you're reading the same book over and over. So maybe, perhaps the reason that there are all these people upset saying they don't like the diversity of the reads is, and this is, this is just my theory. It might actually be because they're embracing the like mainstream book talk style, at least from what I've seen. In my opinion, most of the popular book talk books are essentially the same thing. It's going to be a straight white adjacent couple. It's going to be fae or it's going to be dragons. There's not really that much variety. I think we can all agree. there aren't that many wildly out there books being chosen to assault book talk's ears. So it's kind of like if you're catering towards the art style that's prevalent within that, group of people, that group of people are going to expect content that also fits their standard average. But if you're trying to be more diverse, more unique in your offerings, there's going to be kind of a disconnect. And I feel like this is also seen a lot in the different covers on books. A lot of people talk about books that, like Reads with Rachel did a book review about a book that the cover gave off really strong, like romantic-y vibes, but then the content itself was actually like really different. And so people were rating the book badly, saying, well, I expected this to be like XYZ, but it's nothing like that. And it's like, yeah, they thought it was going to be like that because the cover was similar when the cover really should be different. Or there are books that are for YA that have like adult style covers, and then people read it and they're like, why was this so immature? And it's like certain genres have sort of conventions or trends in what they look like. So if something looks like a contemporary romance and then you open it and it's about witches or something, you're going to be like, that's not what I was expecting at all, if that makes sense. So that might be contributing to this disconnect. What do you think about Illumicrate's decision? Do you think people are overreacting? Or do you think Illumicrate is making a major faux pas? Well, that's all for now. I will see you next time.